Hello, Corinne. It's Lexi and you here today to talk about Gratitude 540. How are
Good
you?
morning. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here with you. It's a rainy day here in Vermont. How's it in Denver?
It's raining here this morning too. It's like 40 something degrees and there was frost. So,
Oh, we didn't have frost. So, because I would think our weather might mirror each other. But anyway, I'm
it's
excited
fair.
to see you here and a couple of questions just to share with folks that are following our journey about the Gratitude 540 launch. You're a contributing author to this work, and you're also an author on your own, which is awesome and amazing to have you as a part of the project. Could you share with us a little bit about why you chose to take part in this project?
Sure. So first, thank you for having me on this video and also in the project. I think gratitude is something that, I can't imagine my life without. And it's something that we spoke about before with coming to it mindfully. I think that, when you think about gratitude, when I think about gratitude, I think about the concept of, you can't know joy without woe, and you can't know light without dark. And I think that gratitude is a reflection of loss for me. Like, everybody has gone through something, right? Everyone's dealing with something. And for me, it's losing some precious people in my life. And in the course of a year, and it's going now 20 years ago, my mom passed away, and then my brother-in-law passed away, and then my daughter passed away.
Mm.
And over the course of that process, the grief and all the rawness and all those, when we kind of came up for a breath, we realized how precious life is, and how, and when my daughter passed away, she was a newborn, and, a sense of purpose was lost. And what am I supposed to do? I'm Irish Catholic. Like, we're supposed to have like a brood, live in a shoe, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so when my daughter passed away, we didn't know if we could or should have future children. Like, we didn't, all these things were up in the air. And then, we now have living children. And anyway, the process of gratitude through that, it's a constant daily thing for us, because, our children are such a gift. Like, we lost one of them. Our marriage is a gift. My ability to sit and be able to talk about any of that is a gift. And when I shared the story that's in the anthology, the gratitude story, that is a story about my mom. And it came to me as a result of, I won a writing award, and I was giving a speech at a luncheon, and I was called to talk about, why do you do what you do? And, I write because my mom instilled all these things in me, and she's gone. And she had a notebook where she had notes about the book she was going to write. I still remember the title of it. It was,
Oh,
all the things. So I think that coming to, like, I sit at my desk every day and I look around my office, and I am grateful. I'm grateful that I have a space to write in. I'm grateful that I have the ability to do so. And I'm so aware of how precious that is. And I think it's a choice. I think that gratitude is a choice, and it's a practice. It's like a habit, like anything else. And I think that, I don't know. I feel like every day of my life is, I'm not going to say it's wonderful and flowery. Like, it's not, it's, life is life, but I feel like my view on everything is informed by a deep sense of gratitude. And I don't know how else to, articulate the weight of it. Cause it's
yeah.
a big factor in everything. And if you look at my profile in places, I always say I'm a bright side looker. And, a lot of people say, oh, she's, always silver lining it. And it's like, it's not just blowing sunshine. It's actually
Yeah.
seeking out the gifts. Like, and when I look back on losing my mom and losing my daughter, it made me a deeper human. It made me a better spouse. It made me a much better parent than I could ever have possibly been to my living children. Those are gifts. And you don't get that without
Yeah.
tasting the other side. And so I think that gratitude is a lesson, I think.
Yeah, I have to say that when I started, I guess over a dozen years ago, really studying the science and the living demonstration of gratitude in humanity,
Mm-hmm.
I was taken aback because I haven't suffered great loss in my life as far as human beings that I love. natural grandparents that age, and I mean
Mhm.
sadness, but not ripping away like you're describing. Um, and so many people come into their gratitude through their grief. And it was so amazing to see that response versus so many, a whole other spectrum of responses that are available to you. So, can you share in a couple of words, maybe for those that are experiencing grief or would like to explore gratitude as a response to grief they've had to have some healing? Like, how do you practice gratitude?
Oh goodness. Um, it's a difficult conversation to have with somebody who is actively grieving. Like bereavement is a state, right? It's a state of consciousness, and it's not voluntary. Like there's definitely, and I hesitate. Like I know that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross on the stages of grief, and all those are totally legitimate. But like I wrote an essay, and in fact, it's one of the reasons why my nonprofit exists. I have a nonprofit that I do bereavement support for families that lose children, and it
Oh,
came out of a very organic. There's a huge unmet need for this support. And I talk about grief not as, undulating waves and not as mountain ranges. I think of it as a big round room. You keep going round and round, and all these doors, some of them are open, some of them are closing. And, it's a cycle. And I think that when you talk about grief and coming through it, I think when I was working with families in regular peer support setting, you can't speak to someone about that when they're in it. Like,
yeah.
it's kind of like you're in a train car and it's just the door. Like they can't even see that there's another train car after that one. Like they just have to deal here. But once I think that the rawness fades, and I think that you start realizing that, you're waking up every day and it's not the first thing you're thinking about. I think when that time starts to come, and it's different for everyone,
Mhm.
you start to see, I think, people that are in loss build a community of other people who have had that loss. And if they don't build it themselves, it kind of descends upon them.
Yeah.
And, it happens. And you, I believe, start to watch the other people, and you realize that, there is joy after this. And there is the capacity to actually live a life, a full life, a complete life, where you learn how to carry your grief without living in your grief. Like that's the goal, right? You don't want to, your losses can't be your identity. Like they can be a big piece of you, and they can motivate you, and they can thrust you in a direction. But I think that the path to making it a part of you, as opposed to this thing that you're dragging, is
Mhm.
gratitude. Because um, one of the things, and it's funny, I can talk for hours on this. So if you're just going to give me a signal, and I'll cut it short. But I do memorial events. So my nonprofit hosts, we have a statue in the park. My town gave us land. We built this child loss memorial, and I do 2 events a year. And I come every year at the microphone with my speech, the thing I'm going to talk about. And every time, by the time I'm finished, I've put the paper down, and all I'm talking about is connection. And I'm talking about finding the gifts in loss. And I think that, even when we were, I went to go pick up my daughter's ashes, and I
Mhm.
went to go pick up my daughter's death certificate. And I picked up my daughter's death certificate years later when I had my 4 living children in the back seat. And I turned around and I'm like, oh my God, like, it, you have to seek out the gifts, and they're there. Like
Yeah.
I can't, I can't imagine what a waste it would be if you went through a trauma. I mean, and not all trauma has, like, I don't want to belittle anyone or diminish anyone's experience with what they're dealing with.
Right.
But, death in particular is, unfortunately, child loss doesn't kill you, right? You have to focus on your life going forward.
Yeah.
So you have a choice. You can choose to be bitter and focus on this pain well after the grief is done,
Mhm.
or you can transform that into service. And the service can be service to yourself, it can be service to other human, it can be service to the person that you're missing. I think that you have to power it, like, and I think that gratitude is the engine. I think that I don't know, like one year I shared, like not very long ago, with a friend of mine who had no idea about my loss, because it doesn't always come up. It's one of those things that
Sure.
you know, hi, you know, guess here's my story. No, like that's a downer and nobody wants to hear it. But sometimes, you
Yeah.
know, there's an opening for it and it's relevant and you share. And I had shared once with friends of mine, these new people that I had met at a writing retreat of all things. And I talked about my daughter and I shared a picture and I talked about the memorial. And my girlfriend the next day said to me, you know, when you talk about your daughter, I think of a dandelion. And I'm all like, a dandelion? Like, that's like a weed. Like, what? Really? And she's like, no, like one moment she was here and then poof, she was everywhere.
Oh,
And like, I don't know if you can see, there's a dandelion painting on the wall. Do you see that?
yes, I do see it.
I painted that shortly thereafter. And like the concept of gratitude for me is personified
I love
by,
that.
or
I love
exemplified by the dandelion, because
that.
it's contagious and it's like a virus, and it's the most beautiful thing to share.
I love all of that. So maybe the next book cover in the series will have a dandelion. Who knows?
Oh, I love it.
Wouldn't
It's
that be
just,
lovely? Yeah.
yes, what a beautiful bit, and everybody can understand it. And I
Yeah.
spoke about that. I spoke about that at one of my events, and I remember to this day, several people have sent me pictures of dandelions and talked about how their children, who either were alive to experience the loss of their sibling,
Hmm.
or came subsequent to and are just aware that there's a loss in the family, talked about, oh my God, that's Miss Corinne's dandelion. Like, and it's
Oh,
like, what a gift to be able to give. Like my children, they grew up always knowing they had an older sister who passed away. And it's like not weird. Like there's one picture in the house, like, and I have my events and stuff, and my kids can opt in or out. Like I've always wondered, like, did I break them? Is it like, what did I do? Like, what is the cost of this on them? Right.
yeah.
But when you find a way that you can articulate to a child, like that obviously brings them joy. Like
Yes.
that's wonderful, and I'm grateful for that. Like, so I think that's right there is seeking a gift and seeking the gratitude. So
Yeah, that's a beautiful and such a tangible way to actually.
yeah.
And so that's, brings me right back to the whole collection, is that there's 30 stories in here, and you'll open the book and maybe half of them will resonate with you and half with someone else, because they're from every person's personal voice and perspective of life. And I think it's kind of like 30 dandelions sitting inside that book. I think I'm going to get some.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I'm going to
wonderful.
push them in my book. Yeah, I mean, that's just beautiful. And so thank you for sharing that image with us. And thank you for being here. And
Oh,
thank
thank
you for so eloquently stepping into my dream that I planted the seed for a decade ago. And just me having these interviews with you guys and creating this tangible product for the world there's no words to describe how lovely and delicious it is. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm grateful for being a part of this, and I'm so proud of this project. And I can't wait actually to read every single person's story and sit in it, you know, and try to
Yeah.
just absorb the goodness.
Yes. Thank you for that. Okay. We'll see you on the other side. Have a
All
great
right.
week.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.